Evan and Lauren were a young couple living together in a small house in the suburbs of New York City. They were both in their 20s, but already had busy schedules. Evan worked for an IT company, spending long hours coding, and Lauren worked in marketing, often staying late for meetings and events. Despite the fact that they didn't see each other very often due to their busy schedules, their relationship was filled with love, trust, and mutual support. One day, while Evan was working in his office, he received a message from Lauren. She asked, "Evan, do you mind if I help my ex move? He asked for help, and I think it's okay." Evan felt a little embarrassed, but because he loved and trusted Lauren, he agreed. "It sounds a little weird, but if you think it's the right thing to do, then it's okay," he said. That night, Evan was restless. He couldn't find a place to sit, looking at the clock. It was already 10 o'clock at night and Lauren still hadn't returned home. He texted her, "Where are you? Are you okay?" The answer came immediately. "Everything is fine. He invited me to dinner at a cafe to thank me. I'll be there soon." Lauren returned home very late, after Evan had fallen asleep. They didn't see each other in the morning because Evan had left for work before Lauren woke up. The next day, during his lunch break, Evan received a new message from Lauren. "Evan, he's having a party tonight and he invited me. There will be a lot of other people there. Do you mind if I go?" Evan felt his heart clench. He didn't like this situation, but he decided to stay calm and trust Lauren. "If you want to go, please go. But I ask you to be careful," he wrote. In the evening, Evan was home alone again. His mind was racing with what was happening. He loved Lauren very much and believed that they had a real connection. But would love and trust alone be enough to overcome the anxiety that was growing in his heart? That evening, Evan sat in the dark for a long time waiting for Lauren to return, but she was not home until the morning. The feeling of tension only increased, leaving many questions unanswered. The next morning, Evan woke up earlier than usual. The night had been restless, and he had stayed up almost all night thinking about what was happening. When he got ready to go to work, Lauren was still asleep. Her phone was on the nightstand next to her, flashing messages. Evan was curious, but he suppressed the urge to pick up the phone. He had always respected her privacy. He tried to concentrate at work, but his thoughts kept coming back to Lauren. He loved her so much that the thought of losing her hurt him. He wanted to talk to her, but he didn't know how to start the conversation without sounding jealous or too suspicious. When Evan got home in the evening, Lauren was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee. She looked a little tired, but smiling. "Hey, how was your day?" she asked, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "It's fine. How was yours?" Evan tried to keep his tone even. Lauren told him a little about the party, but she described everything very superficially, avoiding details. Evan noticed this and decided not to press her. They spent the evening together, but there was some invisible tension between them. The next day, the situation repeated itself. Lauren texted Evan again. She said that her ex had asked for another meeting to thank him for his help with the move. This time, Evan did not hold back. "Lauren, you're spending more time with him than you do with me. I want to know if this is normal. Or am I just exaggerating?" he wrote to her. Lauren replied almost immediately. "Evan, I love you, and that's not going to change. We are just friends and you have no reason to worry." These words calmed Evan down a bit, but his anxiety remained. They began to see each other less and less, because Lauren often had other things to do. Evan noticed that she was less open, and her phone was often on silent. One night, when Lauren was out late again, Evan decided to talk to her frankly. When she returned home, he was waiting for her in the living room. "Lauren, we need to talk," he began. "What's wrong?" she asked, taking off her coat. "I feel like something has changed between us. You've been spending a lot of time with him. I need to know if everything is okay between us." Lauren sat down next to him and took his hand. Evan, I know this may sound strange, but you come first for me. I just want to help someone who was once a part of my life. I don't want this to separate us. Evan wanted to believe her words, but his doubts were nagging at him. Anxiety grew in his heart, and he realized that he would soon have to make a choice: continue to trust Lauren or question everything they had built together. The days that followed were tense. Evan began to notice more small things. Lauren's phone was always in her hand, her video calls became more frequent, and when asked who she was talking to, Lauren was evasive. One day, when Evan came home earlier than usual, he found Lauren in an unusual situation. She was sitting on the couch with her ex, laughing and holding a glass of wine. Lauren looked confused when she saw Evan. "What's he doing here?" Evan asked calmly but firmly. Lauren started to explain, but her words sounded awkward. Evan realized that it was time for a serious conversation that would determine their future. Evan stood in the doorway, his gaze cold and intense. Lauren quickly put her glass on the table and stood up, trying to take control of the situation. Her ex, who was sitting on the couch, looked equally confused, but tried to remain calm. "Evan, it's not what you think," Lauren began, coming closer. Evan raised his hand to stop her. "I want to hear the truth, Lauren. What's going on here? And why is he here when I'm not?" Lauren took a deep breath. "He came in for a little while. We talked about his problems and I thought it wouldn't be a problem. I didn't want to upset you." Evan looked at the man. "Do you realize that your presence is jeopardizing my relationship? Why are you still around her?" The ex threw up his hands. "Look, Evan, I don't want to interfere. Lauren is just helping me through a difficult time. That's all." Evan looked at Lauren in confusion. He felt that the words did not correspond to reality. "Lauren, I can't do this anymore. I feel like you're pulling away from me. If it's not what I think, then convince me. Let me know that I'm not wrong about you." Lauren sat down on the couch and put her head in her hands. "Evan, I'm confused. I didn't mean to hurt you. You're wonderful, but when I help him, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. It's not about us." Evan smiled bitterly. "Not about us? Have you thought about how this affects me? On us? I've always been honest with you. But can you say the same?" Lauren remained silent. Her ex realized that he shouldn't be here anymore. He stood up. "I should leave. This is none of my business." As the door closed behind him, a deep silence fell between Evan and Lauren. "I love you, Lauren. But I feel like you're not here anymore. I can't fight for us by myself," Evan said, trying to keep it together. Lauren finally looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. "I love you too, Evan. But maybe you're right. Maybe I've lost myself in this relationship. I need to figure myself out." These words sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Evan nodded silently, gathered his things and left the house. Outside, he breathed in the cold night air, realizing that this might be the end. In the days that followed, Evan and Lauren communicated only through short messages. Their home, once filled with laughter and warmth, became empty and quiet. They both realized that they needed to be apart to figure out what they really wanted. It was painful, but also liberating. They no longer held on to an illusion, but gave each other the opportunity to find answers to their questions. Lauren started seeing a therapist to deal with her feelings, and Evan focused on work and started exercising to overcome stress. Several months passed before they met again. This time, their conversation was sincere and without pressure. They decided to give themselves another chance, but with new rules, more openness, more honesty, and more time for each other. It was not a perfect story, but it taught them the most important thing: love requires trust, and trust requires constant work. When Lauren and Evan decided to give their relationship another chance, they set out to fix the mistakes that had nearly destroyed their lives together. They started by establishing new rules that gave them both a sense of confidence and security. Lauren admitted that she was sometimes afraid to share her thoughts with Evan for fear of his reaction. Evan, in turn, realized that he had sometimes suppressed his feelings for fear of appearing too jealous. They agreed that from now on they would discuss everything, even if it was difficult. Lauren openly said that her ex reached out to her because she was his support during a difficult time. She admitted that she had overstepped the boundaries of friendship and promised not to jeopardize her relationship with Evan because of the past. Evan, in turn, shared his fears of being sidelined. He admitted that he felt unwanted and forgotten. Lauren apologized and promised to make up for lost time. They realized that their main problem area was the lack of time for the two of them. Work and busyness left their relationship in the background. They decided to set a rule: spend an evening together at least twice a week, without phones or external distractions. They spent their first evening together cooking dinner. Lauren chose a recipe for Italian pasta, and Evan helped chop the vegetables. It was a simple activity, but they laughed, discussed their plans for the future, and reminisced about how they first met. To end the chapter with her past, Lauren decided to stop all contact with her ex. She wrote him a message thanking him for his friendship, but noting that their meetings were causing problems in her current relationship. It was hard for Evan to believe that this was final, but when he saw the message, he felt that Lauren really wanted to keep their love alive. A few months after they started working on themselves and their relationship, Evan and Lauren noticed how much had changed. They started planning small trips, weekends in the mountains, and even went to workshops together to try new hobbies. One day, sitting on the shore of a lake during a mini vacation, Evan took Lauren's hand and said, "I'm glad we didn't give up. You really are the most important person in my life." Lauren looked him in the eye, smiled and replied, "And I'm glad we went through all this. We are stronger than ever." Although their journey was difficult, they both realized that every obstacle made their love stronger. They were no longer afraid to tell each other the truth, and every day was filled with new discoveries, warmth, and support. This crisis taught them a lesson: love is not just a feeling, but daily work, effort, and a desire to be together, despite all the difficulties. As time went on, Lauren and Evan felt that their relationship had become deeper and more fulfilling. However, life continued to throw up new challenges that forced them to test themselves and their love. One of the biggest changes in their lives came when Evan was offered a promotion at work. It was his dream job, a senior developer position at a company he valued greatly. But the promotion required a move to another city, hundreds of miles away from their current home. When he shared the news with Lauren, her face lit up with joy for him, but then a shadow of worry appeared. "Evan, that's wonderful. But what does this mean for us? Do you want me to move in with you?" Evan felt confused. He didn't want to force Lauren to change her life because of his career, but he didn't want to lose her either. "I want us to be together. But I realize that this is a big step. I don't want to put pressure on you." Lauren thought about it. She loved her job and wasn't sure if she could find a similarly good opportunity elsewhere. But the thought of being without Evan seemed unbearable. "Give me a few days to think about it," she said. These few days were a challenge for Lauren. She talked to her coworkers, looked for job openings in the city where Evan could move to, and even visited a career counselor. On the third night, sitting together at dinner, she looked at Evan and said, "I'm going with you. We've been through so much together, I can't imagine my life without you. I will find a new job. We will make it." Evan felt like a weight had been lifted from his soul. He stood up, hugged Lauren and whispered softly, "Thank you. I promise you won't regret this." The move was the beginning of a new chapter for them. In the first few months, everything was chaotic: boxes, an unfamiliar apartment, and adapting to a new environment. Lauren was looking for a job, and Evan plunged into new responsibilities. But they didn't let the difficulties affect their connection. In the evening, even after the longest days, they found time to talk, cook dinner together, or just walk the streets of their new city. One evening, 6 months after the move, Evan invited Lauren to dinner at their favorite cafe. It was a quiet place by the river where they often spent their weekends. During dinner, Evan looked a little nervous. Lauren noticed this but didn't say anything, thinking it had something to do with his job. But when the waiter brought dessert, Lauren saw that there was a small velvet case on the plate next to her cake. Evan stood up, took out the case and opened it, revealing a beautiful ring. "Lauren, you have become everything to me. You support me, inspire me, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Lauren covered her face with her hands, her eyes filled with tears. She nodded and spoke softly. "Yes, Evan. Of course I will." Their wedding was small, but warm and heartfelt. They invited only their closest friends and family. During the ceremony, they exchanged vows that reflected their entire story. Through hardships, doubts, and trials, they were able to keep their love alive. Now they were building a new life together, as husband and wife. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was real, full of struggles, lessons, and, most importantly, sincere love. Lauren and Evan realized that happiness is not the absence of problems, but the ability to solve them together and grow through them. And they were ready to continue on this path, holding hands. After the wedding, Lauren and Evan's life took on a new rhythm. They moved to a slightly larger apartment, began to organize their space and dream about the future. But with each stage of their life together, they faced new challenges that required their cohesion and trust. A year after their wedding, Lauren and Evan started thinking about having children. The idea of expanding their family seemed like a natural extension of their love. They discussed how they wanted to raise their future children, what being a parent meant to them, and how they could provide stability. But after a few months, Lauren began to notice that trying to get pregnant was not working. They went to the doctor, and after several tests, it turned out that getting pregnant would be more difficult than they expected. This came as a heavy blow to both of them. Evan tried to be supportive of Lauren, but he could see how much she was worried. "We'll get through this, Lauren. We have options. I'm not giving up hope." Lauren nodded, but her eyes were sad. She felt like she was letting him down, even though Evan kept reassuring her that she wasn't. After several months of deliberation, they decided to try IVF, in vitro fertilization. It was a difficult and exhausting process, both emotionally and physically. Evan supported Lauren every step of the way, traveled with her to all the procedures and tried to ease her mind. One day, when Lauren was on the verge of despair, Evan sat down next to her, took her hands and said, "I love you. It doesn't matter if we become parents now, in a year, or never. You are my life, and I will always be there for you." These words became a real support for Lauren. After several months of tension, the doctor told them the news: the IVF procedure was successful. Lauren was pregnant and their joy knew no bounds. They began to prepare for the birth of their child, setting up the nursery, buying things, and thinking of names. When their son was born, they decided to name him Noah. Holding him in their arms for the first time, Evan and Lauren realized that all their efforts and trials had been worth it. As the years passed, Lauren and Evan grew together in their new role. Being parents was not easy, but they worked as a team. They supported each other during sleepless nights, shared the joys of their son's first steps and words. At the same time, they did not forget about their love. Every month, they tried to find time just for themselves: dinner at their favorite restaurant, a walk in the park, or an evening watching a movie. One evening, 10 years after their wedding, Lauren and Evan were sitting on the porch of their home, watching their son play in the yard. Lauren turned to Evan and said, "We've been through so much, but you've always been there for me. I have no idea how lucky I am." Evan smiled and kissed her on the forehead. "We are together. And I will always be there for you. We've created something beautiful, and I'm sure there are many more wonderful moments ahead." Their life was not perfect, but they learned to overcome difficulties together, support each other and enjoy every day. Their story was proof that true love is not just about romance, but about partnership, perseverance, and a willingness to fight for happiness. As the years went by, Lauren and Evan's lives continued to change. Their son Noah grew up as the favorite child in the family, and every year he became more and more like his father, persistent, kind, and always ready to support others. Lauren and Evan felt happy, but like any family, they had their share of difficulties. However, each obstacle made them stronger. One day, when Noah was already 12 years old, Evan began to notice that he often felt tired and had chest pains. At first, he ignored the symptoms, thinking it was just a result of overwork. But one morning, during a typical family breakfast, he suddenly collapsed. Lauren immediately called an ambulance. At the hospital, they learned that Evan had serious heart problems and needed surgery. The news came as a shock to the family. "I'm with you, Evan. We're going to get through this together," Lauren assured him, holding his hand. Before the surgery, Evan gathered Lauren and Noah, sat them down next to each other and said, "I want you to know that you are my life. If anything goes wrong, I want you to remember how much I love you." Lauren couldn't hold back her tears, but she persisted. "Don't you dare even think about what will go wrong. We've been through so much. And we'll get through this too." Noah was silent, but his eyes were full of determination. "You're strong, Dad. I know you'll make it." The surgery was successful, but Evan had to recover for a long time. This period was a real challenge for the whole family. Lauren took on most of the responsibilities, including working, caring for Evan and raising Noah. Evan felt guilty about being a burden, but Lauren reminded him every day that this was their journey together. "We are a team, Evan. And your role now is to recover." During rehabilitation, Evan began to appreciate every moment of life. He spent more time with Noah, helped him with his studies, and even built a birdhouse for the garden with him. When Evan made a full recovery, he suggested that Lauren and Noah fulfill a long-held dream, to go on a family road trip across the country. They bought a small trailer and hit the road. The trip became an unforgettable adventure. They admired sunsets in the mountains, swam in clear lakes and made bonfires under the starry sky. This time brought them even closer as a family. When Noah turned 18, he announced that he wanted to become a doctor. He was inspired by the events he experienced during his father's illness. Evan and Lauren supported him in this decision, proud of how independent and kind their son had become. One day, while walking Noah to the university, Evan hugged him and said, "You are our pride, son. Knowing how much you care about others, I'm sure you will make a difference in this world." Lauren stood next to him, holding Evan's hand, and looked at her son with warmth. "Noah, you have grown so strong and kind. We believe in you." Lauren and Evan returned home, where they now enjoyed quiet days, reminiscing about all the challenges that had made their love even stronger. They often said to each other, "We have come this far together. And I wouldn't change a single moment." Their story became an example for their son and everyone who saw how they loved and supported each other. Because their strength was in a simple truth: love is not only words, but also actions, a willingness to fight and stay together, no matter what. Years passed, and Lauren and Evan gradually entered a new stage of life. Noah graduated from university and became a talented doctor. He worked at a local hospital, often visiting his parents on weekends. Their house, which used to be full of children's laughter and noise, was now quieter, but Lauren and Evan found peace in it. They discovered new hobbies. Lauren started gardening, creating an impressive garden around their home. Evan, always interested in technology, began collecting old radios, restoring them to their original condition. They spent their evenings together, often sitting on the terrace with a cup of tea, listening to birds sing and discussing their memories and dreams. One morning, Lauren found an old notebook in her desk drawer. It was a list of their dreams together that they had created before Noah was born. Many of the items had already been accomplished, but a few remained unfulfilled. Evan, do you remember when we wanted to see the northern lights? She asked, showing the list. Evan smiled, took the notebook and said, so why don't we do it now? We have time, and we're together. It's the perfect time. They started planning a trip to Alaska. It was a long-time dream of theirs, and they were as enthusiastic as newlyweds. In Alaska, they saw the northern lights for the first time. It was a magical sight, bright green, pink, and blue flashes dancing across the night sky. Lauren held Evan's hand, her eyes shining with tears. This is even better than I imagined, she whispered. Evan smiled and replied, everything gets better with you. This trip became a symbol for them that it is never too late to realize your dreams. They returned home with renewed energy, telling Noah and their friends about their adventures. Lauren and Evan spent the last years of their lives in harmony. Their home became a place where friends and family always wanted to come back. Noah got married, and soon Lauren and Evan had a granddaughter. It was a new chapter in their lives. They enjoyed every moment of it, playing with their granddaughter, telling her stories from their youth and passing on their wisdom. One evening, when they were in their 70s, Lauren and Evan sat on the same porch where they had dreamed of the future so many years ago. Now they watched their granddaughter run through the garden holding a kite. Evan, our life has been a real adventure, Lauren said, leaning on his shoulder. Evan hugged her and replied softly, yes. And I would have traveled this journey only with you. They stared at the sunset in silence, holding hands. Their lives had been full of trials, joy, and love. They went through everything together, and that was the main achievement of their journey. And even now, when most of their dreams had come true, they knew that there were still many warm moments ahead that they would create together. As the years went by, Lauren and Evan enjoyed their role as grandparents more and more. Their granddaughter, whom they named Emma, became the center of their attention. They told her stories, taught her about gardening, and even showed her how to fix old radios, which was Evan's hobby. Emma loved spending time with them. Every summer, she would come to their home and spend weeks there, enjoying the warmth of their family. Lauren and Evan often talked to Emma about life, sharing the lessons they had learned over the years of their journey together. Don't ever be afraid of difficulties, Emma, Evan told her, they help you realize how strong you are. Lauren added, and always listen to your heart. It's rarely wrong if you really listen to it. These conversations left a deep mark on Emma, and she often told her friends that her grandparents were the wisest people she knew. On their 50th wedding anniversary, Noah and his wife organized a big surprise for Lauren and Evan, a family trip to Italy, a country Lauren had always dreamed of. They all visited Rome, Florence, and Venice together. For Lauren, it was something magical to stand in St. Mark's Square in Venice next to Evan, holding his hand, and listen to the music in the distance. This is even better than I could have imagined, she said. Evan smiled, hugging her gently. I'm glad we can share this moment. When Lauren and Evan returned from their trip, they began to assemble a photo album with all the memories of their lives. They looked through old photos, wrote short notes, and left signed postcards for future generations of their family. One day, Lauren said, Evan, when we are gone, I want Noah, Emma, and all of our family to know how much we loved each other and them. Let this be a memory that inspires them to appreciate life and love. Evan agreed, adding, we will give them a legacy not only in the form of things, but also in the form of values. As the years passed, Lauren and Evan lived happily ever after. When they were almost 90, they still found joy in the little things, the smell of fresh coffee, the birds singing outside the window, the laughter of Emma, who often visited them even after she grew up. One evening, sitting together on the terrace, they watched the sunset. Lauren leaned against Evan's shoulder and said, my heart is full of gratitude. We have had a wonderful life together. Evan took her hand and answered, and I wouldn't change a single moment. It was their last evening together. Lauren passed away peacefully in her sleep that night. Evan lived a few more months, often reminiscing about their life together, and soon joined her. When Noah and Emma were cleaning out their home, they found a photo album and signed cards that Lauren and Evan had left for them. Their words, full of wisdom and love, have become a source of inspiration for all family members. And although Lauren and Evan were gone, their love lived on in the memories, in the values they passed on, and in every sunset their family watched, remembering this incredible couple.